Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a webinar being sponsored by Sustainable CUNY, City University of New York, on a solar installation initiative for public housing in New York City. It's certainly a good day for a webinar, especially if you're curled up by the phone with a good hot drink. Those of us who are here at the Sustainable CUNY offices with our sled dogs parked outside can certainly appreciate that. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements as we get started. We are going to have all participants in listen-only mode throughout the webinar. However, we do welcome your questions and comments, and if you can type them in to the chat box that's located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, what we'll try to do is answer or respond to as many comments and questions as we can during the course of the webinar. We are going to keep it strictly limited to 1 hour, so if we are unable to get to any questions during that hour, or if some questions need a little bit of further research before we can respond to them, we will be posting those responses on the website that you'll see at the end of this presentation, where you'll also be able to access a recording of this webinar should you miss any part of it or want to hear it again. And I'd also like to point out that in the handout section on that right side of your screen, you'll see the little PDF symbol and the webinar presentation. So if you would like to download our slides, just go to the handout section there. So we've set up an agenda for this call, and if we go to the agenda slide, we're going to start out talking about the goals of the solar initiative, both quantitatively and qualitatively. We'll introduce you to the New York City Housing Authority, or NYCHA as it will be called during this call, and discuss the properties that they have throughout the city. Then we're going to talk about the kinds of solar projects that we're envisioning for this solar initiative. We'll look at the potential of the NYCHA rooftops and parking lots for solar. We'll unveil a timeline so you can see how things fall out over a set amount of time. We're going to be talking about creating a demonstration project pipeline as an initial step to this program, and we'll go into the criteria that we've chosen for selecting demonstration sites. We're also going to be talking about the expected outcomes. What are our goals for this, and how do we achieve them? And then comes a very important part, because it's where all of you come in. We believe in a very open and transparent process here. We're looking for input, looking for feedback from the people who have the greatest amount of expertise on this topic, and that would be all of you. So towards the end, we will be giving you a link to a survey that is on SurveyMonkey. We would ask you to complete that survey and submit it to us, and as we'll detail later, it will ask you for comments, opinions, try to gauge a level of interest in this program, and we would ask all of you to participate in that. We're going to have 4 speakers in today's webinar. My name is Ron Reisman. I'm one of the solar ombudsmen here at Sustainable CUNY at the City University of New York, and I'm joined by one of our other ombudsmen, Bill Obercare, who is also going to be acting as our engineer for this webinar. You'll also be hearing from Daphne Boret-Canguilhem, of the New York City Housing Authority. Daphne is a senior advisor on capital projects for their energy and sustainability unit. And finally, we'll hear from Ben Foster, who is an expert consultant from ICF International and is joining us as part of a grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on their Renew 300 project, which is aiming at installing 300 megawatts of solar on the nation's public housing. So first, we'd like to explain why Sustainable CUNY is hosting this seminar and exactly who we are and what we do and what our role is in this project. So I'm going to turn it over to my fellow buddy, Bill Oberkar, to describe that. Bill?
Thank you very much, Ron, for the nice introduction. And I am not a PE, so acting engineer is very kind to say and also accurate. There's one other housekeeping item. I would like to thank the NYSUN PV Trainers Network for allowing us to use their webinar platform. So this particular webinar is not directly affiliated with the NYSUN PV Trainers Network. We just expected a good number of attendees, and we want to be able to accommodate all of them, and they were kind enough to let us use their platform. So without further ado, my name is Bill Oberkar. I'm a New York State Solar Ombudsman with Sustainable CUNY of the City University of New York, and I just want to start with a little bit of background of how this project came to be and some of the things that the NYC Solar Partnership is doing in New York City. So as you can see here, the New York City Solar Partnership consists of the NYC Mayor's Office of Sustainability, NYC Economic Development Corporation, and the partnership is led by the City University of New York. We at Sustainable CUNY formed this partnership in 2006 and have been interacting with the solar market in New York City for over a decade at this point. The reason that is the way that CUNY fits in to the lead of the NYC Solar Partnership is that the City University of New York is an objective third party that really has a trusted voice in this particular community and a unique ability to be able to bring all stakeholders to the table, whether they're industry, whether they are other NYC agencies. The City University of New York, along with EDC and MOS, are in a unique position to be able to bring everyone together. For the past 11 years, CUNY has been providing regular market and data analysis for the solar industry in New York City, and also we've been providing analysis for the market in the state more broadly. We have a team of solar ombudsmen here at Sustainable CUNY where this is our day job. We work on solar issues in New York City, in New York State all the time, and we are very happy to be in that position. As of summer 2015, we are officially funded as ombudsman of a few positions here at Sustainable CUNY through the Mayor's Office of Management and Budget, and also we have some funding going to MOS and EDC as well to really help bring the city's solar goals to fruition, and we are working all the time. As I said, this is our day job to be able to do those things. Through the City University of New York and our partners, we have deep information technology resources. I think a great example of that and a fitting example for this particular webinar is the New York State Solar Map and Portal. For those of you who have not seen it or are not familiar with it, strongly urge you to take a look at it. It's pretty much a one-stop shop for information on the solar market in New York City, as well as building level estimates for solar potential that incorporate LiDAR data, but we will get into that in a bit more depth later on in the webinar. MOS and EDC have been helping us in a very strategic way based on those institutions and their place in the city. They're really able to help support solar and economic development in our city. They are also actively engaged with stakeholders from industry to government at the local level, state level, and federal level, and we very much appreciate having folks from those two organizations on the team. As may be abundantly clear at this point, we have brought this partnership together to be able to take advantage of a vast network of resources in order to be able to accomplish the goals of this city. So Sustainable CUNY has four main focus areas: solar infrastructure, mapping and IT, ArcGIS functions, expanding access to solar, and finally resiliency. If folks are familiar with our DG Hub project, you probably know that we have put a lot of energy into figuring out how energy storage projects can work in this city and to be able to support the recent 100 megawatt hour goal set by the mayor's office. Throughout the past 11 years, CUNY has led some key market actions. I'm not going to read all these to you. I assume at least some of the folks on this webinar have been around since there were only 5 installers at the table a decade ago working in this city. We are happy to see that number has grown to the point where we had nearly 100 people register for this very webinar. I think that is some pretty clear evidence, and we look at it as evidence that something is certainly going right here, and you can see, kind of line by line, year by year, some of the big highlights that Sustainable CUNY and the New York City Solar Partnership have accomplished to be able to advance the solar industry in the city. You can see at the bottom, I'm sure folks have attended the New York Solar Summit in the past. If you haven't, please look out for that early summer of 2017, and you can see the variety of other services that the NYC Solar Partnership provides down at the bottom as well. With that, I would like to turn it over to be able to go over the goals of this particular initiative with you folks.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daphne Poret-Ganguiem. I work with the New York City Housing Authority in the Energy and Sustainability Department, and I am leading this solar initiative for NYCHA. So I'll begin to introduce the goals of NYCHA Solar Initiative. So NYCHA Solar Initiative was announced a year ago, actually, in April 2016, when NYCHA released its next generation NYCHA Sustainability Agenda, whose cover you can see on the slide, which is its 10-year strategic plan for sustainability and energy projects. You can find this document on NYCHA's website if you want to learn more about it. Through this solar initiative, NYCHA also joined the Renew 300 Challenge that Ron mentioned in the introduction, and that was launched by the Department of Housing and Urban Development in partnership with the Department of Energy to install 300 megawatt of renewable energy capacity at federally assisted housing. So the overarching goals that NYCHA is pursuing under this solar initiatives are, first, to install 25 megawatt of capacity in total over 10 years. Then to reduce its energy costs and for its residents when possible. To use solar projects to improve the resiliency of NYCHA's portfolio of buildings, and to leverage solar projects to provide training and hiring opportunities on green jobs for NYCHA residents. In terms of goals regarding the solar industry, NYCHA Solar Initiative will create business opportunities for solar developers and will expand community shared solar throughout New York City. Next slide, please. And then now just a few words to introduce the New York City Housing Authority, or NYCHA. NYCHA is a provider of permanently affordable housing for 400,000 residents in New York City. It is the largest residential landlord in the United States, with a portfolio of 328 developments containing 2,500 buildings across all 5 boroughs. It's, in terms of electric consumption, it's 175 million square feet of apartments and common areas account for more than 1.3 billion kilowatt hour consumed annually, totaling around $180 million in electric costs. So this is a scale of NYCHA, which is really massive, and this is how we this is through the scale that we want to take advantage of our portfolio for the the solar project. To provide some explanation of NYCHA electric cost, I will hand it over to Ben Foster with ICF.
Great, thank you, Daphne. I appreciate that. This is Ben Foster with ICF. We've been engaged under a HUD technical assistance grant to support NYCHA's efforts and specifically to help refine some of the economic and technical criteria that are being used to help screen the portfolio. So one of the things we did to get that process started was to review that large annual energy spend from NYCHA and break that down into the different tariffs and categories of opportunities within those. So while NYCHA pays for the vast majority of the electric bills of their facilities, 95% or so of the actual bills fall under three different NYPA rate tariffs, as you can see on the schedule. And that's a breakdown. It's about 95% whether you look at usage or cost or number of meters. So you can see that the bulk of those come from 068 and 069, but also from 062. Now, to dive more deeply into those, because each tariff has its own particular cost structure, both in terms of demand and in terms of addressable energy usage costs. So we looked at individual energy-only addressable costs from a solar perspective, and in looking at those, it's not evenly distributed across those three rate tariffs. So as we look at 062 rate tariff, that's approximately less than 1% of the total energy usage, but it has by far the highest addressable cost for solar per kilowatt hour, and we believe that that's likely the only rate tariff that would be at a high enough cost from an energy perspective to justify on-site energy offset. And however, 068 and 069 represent the bulk of the usage, but the addressable, avoidable cost from a solar perspective is quite low. That's why we're looking at a number of different options to develop solar across the portfolio. So I'll turn it back over to the rest of the team to talk about what those types of projects look like and how we're going to proceed with those.
Thanks, Ben. This is Ron again. So the initiative envisions three kinds of projects, and I'll harken back to what Ben just reviewed in terms of that tariff. So we're looking at offsetting the usage under that 062 tariff, even though it's only a small percentage of the overall usage of NYCHA. The fact that it stands out, and as you saw from the previous slide, is almost 25 cents a kilowatt hour compared to about 5 cents a kilowatt hour under the other tariffs. So we're specifically targeting those buildings under that 062 tariff, and that's where we would be looking to install on-site net metered behind-the-meter systems in order to offset the usage at that host site. We are also looking to install remote net metered systems at other NYCHA buildings. So if we have an 062 building, for example, that does not have the available roof space or other characteristics aren't conducive to having an on-site system there, we would be looking to install a system on another NYCHA building to serve that 062 building. And finally, the third option that we're looking at is community shared solar. And in a moment, Bill is going to go into a more in-depth description of that. But essentially, in that case, NYCHA is a passive partner and is taking advantage of one of their biggest assets, which is their rooftops, and looking to monetize that asset by leasing that roof space to developers who will install solar systems where the output would be shared among multiple off-takers at different sites throughout the city. So those are the three kinds of projects that we're looking at under this initiative, and I'll ask Bill to go into a little more depth on the community shared solar because that's a very important aspect of this.
All right, thanks, Ron. Yes, I have the attendee list up in front of me, and I have met a lot of you over the past couple of years. So I have a feeling that most of us already know what community shared solar is, and that probably has a lot to do with why folks have tuned into this. So I'm going to bring up the mechanics here, which you all probably know well, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. First, we've got NYCHA, who is the host site in this case, is going to, or is looking to send out an RFP to contract with hopefully some folks on this webinar. From there, we'd like to get a community shared solar project up and running. As I'm sure most, if not all of you know, site selection is the current largest barrier to shared solar in New York City. That is according to the request for information that the New York City Solar Partnership released in February of last year. Well, time does fly, and thanks to all of you who are listening who responded to that. 91% of the folks who filled out that request for information identified site selection as a barrier to shared solar in New York City, and 75% of folks who filled that out the RFI identified site selection as the major barrier to shared solar in New York City. So we've got more process here in our shared solar Gantt chart, which we think does a pretty good job of showing how the process is going to work out. And what we're really focusing on primarily for this opportunity with NYCHA is the community shared solar model. As folks saw and heard Ben explain, behind the meter projects for a vast majority of NYCHA's buildings might be a bit difficult to pull off economically. That said, those buildings do have, varying degrees of available roof space. So in NYCHA's position, it could be that the best economic benefit is to be able to earn the passive income from the roof lease, and it also could be the case that the third-party ownership models that are common to community shared solar installations will benefit NYCHA as well from a general O&M and array management perspective as well. I want to get a bit more into the map and the map's LiDAR analysis because that really is important to this particular project. Last year, when Jeff Urban, who many of you know, and Ali Silverman, who many of you know, got together with Daphne from NYCHA, we kind of had this idea of just, surely NYCHA has a large portfolio, surely there's something we can do. How much can we do? What's reasonable? What's a good goal to set? How are we going to tackle this? And in order to come up with that number, we use the back-end data that powers the New York Solar Map and Portal to be able to do an analysis of all of NYCHA's building stock, their parking lots. We have since done a couple of Helia Scope models, which Ben will get into later, but we are fortunate enough to have, at Sustainable CUNY, to have won Department of Energy funding through the Rooftop Solar Challenge 2 to be able to create that massive data set that powers the New York Solar Map, to be able to prevent ourselves from having to do 2,550 Helios Scope layouts. So really the way that we came to the number for the solar goal for NYCHA and really were able to analyze what is possible was through that massive data set that powers the solar map. As many of you may know, the solar map uses LiDAR data, which again was funded in part by Department of Energy through rooftop solar challenge 1 and 2. So as you can see here, if folks aren't familiar with the solar map, we've got pretty much a building level heat map of every building in the 5 boroughs in Westchester. You're able to just click on the building. You'll see at the bottom that you can get a preliminary capacity estimate as well as project financials. It's kind of cut off on the left-hand side, but you can adjust the numbers to get a more accurate report. This is a tool, so the more information you are able to feed the tool, the more accurate your outcome is going to be. But without this LiDAR data, we would not have the building-by-building capabilities to do the full analysis with NYCHA in partnership and be able to come up with this goal that we're trying to achieve via this webinar. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Ron to talk about what we found out through looking at the data on the back end of the New York Solar Map.
Thanks, Bill. So what you see here is a graphic representation of what we found in our analysis, and what it essentially shows is that about 3/4 of the rooftops in NYCHA's system, and we're dealing there with over 2,500 rooftops, have a potential of anywhere from 0 to 50 kW. Obviously not able to host a very large system. We do have a slice of the pie there of rooftops in the 50 to 100 kW range, and a very thin sliver of those with potentials between 100 and 200, and actually in that group are a couple that may be over 200. But just to kind of manage everyone's expectation about this, most of the rooftops in NYCHA's system are capable of holding solar systems that would be no greater than 50 kW. So if we could move on to the next slide. What we did, therefore, is take the data that we derived through the solar map and through LiDAR, and start to refine it. And we refined it by determining the amount of usable space on the roof. Rather than going with a simply raw number, we recognize that there are structures, there are water towers and HVA systems and cell towers and stairway shafts and whatnot that are going to take away space. There are restricted areas that are fenced off, mandatory setbacks that are required by the FDNY, the fire department in New York, for fire safety. So those were all pulled out of the equation. We also looked at the age and condition of the roof, whether it was capable of supporting the solar system when the roof was last replaced, which then actually gets to the next bullet. Many of you are aware there is a city roof initiative that is replacing rooftops throughout the NYCHA system, and it would certainly make sense to target those buildings that had their roofs replaced more recently versus those that may have to have roof replacement coming up in the next couple of years. And we also looked at campuses and developments within the NYCHA system where rooftops could be aggregated. As Daphne mentioned before, there are more than 2,500 buildings spread out over 328 developments. So some developments have 10, 20, 30 buildings where rooftops can be aggregated to create a larger system. Now, in addition to the rooftops, if we go to the next slide, there we go, parking lots. Parking lots are a very key element in all of this, and as you can see from the illustration here, we have a sizable rooftop and an adjacent parking lot that would also have a significant amount of solar potential. So where it's feasible, we would be looking at parking lot development, we would be looking at solar canopies to install on these parking lots, either as standalone systems or in conjunction with systems that are placed on adjacent rooftops. And we've done an analysis of the parking lots throughout the NYCHA portfolio and come up with some fairly significant numbers on parking lot potential. So we expect this to be an important part of the program. As we move on to the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Ben, who will talk about the Helios Scope that you see here.
Great, thanks, Ron. And as Bill was saying, and Ron was talking about as well, is that the LiDAR data from the solar map is really, really helpful to evaluate en masse a large portfolio of any properties, and especially the NYCHA properties. And then to further refine it, as Ron was describing, and refine the assumptions and screening criteria to identify the best sites for development. One of the things that we're doing as well is building up from the ground up Helios Scope detailed design for a sample of different types of building facilities, rooftops, and also available parking areas around the portfolio, so that we're looking at exactly where the panels may be laid out, doing site-by-site analysis of individual constraints, rooftop units, setbacks, adjusting the actual, the initial assessment into a more realistic assessment of what the capacity could be on any given rooftop, and then using that to feed back into the screening process, so that ultimately what we're intending to do then is to provide enough details in the demonstration packages that will go out later this year to be able to take away some of the risk and help to provide a better set of inputs for the development community as they go to evaluate their interest in individual potential on these different sites. So as you'll see here, this building is the same as shown on earlier on slide 12. From a LiDAR perspective, shows that heat map, and then this particular Helios Scope design that we're doing, we actually laid out all the individual panels and how they could be connected through the individual or the electrical infrastructure at this particular site. So with that, I'll turn it over to Daphne again to talk about the overall solar initiative timeline.
Thank you, Ben. So yes, so now that we have presented the Global Authority Solar Capacity Analysis and how we are moving forward, I just want to provide you with a general overview of the solar program rollout. So as we have mentioned previously, the ultimate goal is to have 25 megawatts installed by 2026. To do that, we'll begin this year in 2017 with a demonstration project. So we are currently developing a demonstration project pipeline of buildings to be able to procure solar services on those buildings in the second half of 2017. Then, learning from the lessons of this demonstration project, we will roll out the program through phased procurement processes during the following years. So this is why this year, 2017, is pretty critical for NYCHA's solar initiative, and why we are conducting this webinar today, and why we set up the survey we mentioned in the introduction. What we will learn this year will help guide the overall program development in the years to come. Next slide, please. So for the demonstration pipeline, so what we will launch this year in 2017, we are building the pipeline right now, and to do that, we are first identifying buildings that are at the same time falling under the 62 rate, the rate that we mentioned previously, and that are also able to host on-site net metered systems. Then we are identifying non-62 rate buildings that are able to host remote net metering systems for buildings under the 62 rate. And finally, we are identifying buildings with roofs or parking lots that are suitably sized for community shared solar. Our goal is to provide aggregated opportunities for both. Could you go back to the previous slides, please? Thank you. Our goal is to provide aggregated opportunities for both rooftops and parking lots within our campuses, as Ron previously mentioned. And we are targeting also buildings whose roofs have been very recently replaced, as also Ron mentioned, notably under the City Roof Replacement Program. For those of you who don't know about it, this program is a capital program funded by the city to replace damaged roofs at NYCHA developments. It started a few years ago, meaning that we already have some roofs whose construction is completed. And the mayor announced a few days ago its new $1 billion commitment to this program. So we'll be able to conduct those two initiatives in parallel and in coordination. In terms of outcomes, what NYCHA is looking for out of this solar initiative can fall under three categories: economics, opportunities for residents, and resiliency. Our first priority is, of course, economic. NYCHA is currently in a difficult financial situation that is well described in its next generation NYCHA strategic plan, if you want to review. So NYCHA's primary goal through this initiative is to increase its revenues through roof leases to solar developer and to lower its energy costs. Next, please. NYCHA is also, in all its initiatives, really committed to provide opportunities to its low residents, who are all of them low and moderate income residents. So NYCHA intends to leverage this initiative to provide training and hiring opportunities to its residents on green and long-term jobs. And finally, NYCHA, next slide please, NYCHA will take advantage of this solar initiative to include, when possible, resiliency and emergency readiness features within the solar projects. One of our strategy, long-term strategy, is really to incorporate resiliency into each and every capital projects, and so we want to also leverage this solar initiative to achieve that. And then I will hand it over to Ben.
Great, thanks, Daphne. So you've seen an overview of the portfolio. It's huge, spread across all the boroughs, and has certain characteristics you've seen from a cost perspective and an energy consumption perspective. It has certain characteristics from a building type and average size perspective. And of course, many of you, if not most of you on the webinar, are familiar with development in the city and in the state. So what we're asking for you is to provide input, because this is very important for us to help inform that demo project and the approach and the size and the packaging of the projects that would be included in the demo effort this year, later this year, and to refine our assumptions and inputs and information that we provide to you as you consider those options and hopefully provide proposals. So this is definitely the first step that we're looking at, not the final step, but your information that you can provide would be super helpful to us. There's a link there, a SurveyMonkey link that goes directly right now and is available to you now, and we will follow up later by email to all the attendees and the invitees to this. As we'll see on the next slide, is we've made it very simple. I know it's probably hard to read, so maybe it doesn't look simple, but it is. We start with who you are, and then we have some questions on your level of experience in the solar market in the state, within the city, and in some different categories, just to get a better background of what your organization has done so far. And then we've got just a few more questions that are open-ended around your recommendations or observations about the portfolio, recommendations about how we might want to package that up, what your interest level is, and any overall suggestions you have as we go to get this ready. So you can provide as much detail as you'd like, or just some simple answers, whatever is best for you, but we would really encourage you to participate and share that information. So with that then, for wrap-up and questions, back to Ron and Bill.
Thanks so much, Ben. I don't know. We still have about 15 minutes on this call. Are there any questions that have come in? I can't see them here, but Bill, do you have any that have come in?
We just got one. That is there a bond requirement for contractors? Daphne, I think you might be in the best position to be able to answer that, possibly Ben.
Well, as much as I understand the question, so we haven't gone into those kinds of details. We will definitely look for solar developers that have a proven experience of like solar projects. I don't know, Ben, if you want to expand, elaborate on that.
Yeah, I would just say that that's going to vary somewhat depending on the type of development that's proposed. So I think that's, we'd be happy to take that input of that question and provide some additional feedback on that later.
Right, and I also just want to reiterate that we are going to log all of these questions that you're asking. Anything that we don't get to aloud right now, we will answer and put up on the website and otherwise circulate. But with that, we've got a few more that came in. Have you guys thought about the problem with vandalism? The short answer to that is yes, but Daphne, you're probably in a better position to answer that one as well.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. So yeah, vandalism might be an issue at some NYCHA developments. So we have started analyzing the types of vandalism risks that a solar developer might face when installing and operating a solar system at a NYCHA development. So we have identified those risks and identified the kind of mitigation steps that either NYCHA or the solar developer itself could take to reduce those risks. So we are finalizing a report on those risks, and it will be made available for like the solar industry who want to answer our procurement processes. And we have started conversations with various stakeholders about those mitigation steps. So it's definitely something we have in mind because it might be real in some cases. But also I want to say that we will, to the maximum extent possible, not prioritize the buildings that are subject to high vandalism, and we know some of them. So we will try to stay away of those buildings for solar project purposes.
All right. Thanks, Daphne. We're seeing a lot of procurement questions, and a lot of that is going to kind of work itself out through the RFP. So the RFI, the reason we're doing that first is to be able to inform the RFP to the extent possible. But I just want to answer one that seems particularly pertinent. What are the requirements for participation? That is not clearly defined as of yet, but one thing that is going to be very important is being a part of the NYSUN program, because with projects of this size, it is going to be important to be able to take advantage of the megawatt block commercial industrial incentive. And then any other requirements will be outlined in the RFPs as they are released. Also have a general question about an email address or a way to contact us about more one-on-one questions in the future. So I scrolled to our final slide here. nysolar@cuny.edu is probably a good place to go. We can get it to, we can get the questions into the right hands and get back some answers via that inbox.
And we will be posting, as you can also see on that slide, there is a link there to the nysolarmap.com/resources page. So probably sometime towards the end of next week, we will have a recording of this webinar posted up there along with the questions and the answers. And if that's it, are there any other questions that have come in?
Yes, there are quite a few. I'm just trying to filter out the ones that apply most broadly to the entire audience to answer, while we have everyone listening. The ones that are a bit more niche, we will go back and answer, and then, as we've said, circulate those answers. We've got one that folks probably want to know. When will the RFP be issued? We're looking, the timeline is by no means final at this moment, to my understanding, but Daphne, do you have kind of a rough idea of when folks can expect these RFPs to start coming up?
Yeah, our timeline is stipulating fall, so we intend to put the RFP out late September or around October 2017, of course.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Right. So this fall.
Yeah, this fall.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we've got another one. Given the rate NYCHA pays at most sites, can these portfolios offer any savings? So that is clearly in reference to the 068 and I believe 069 rate classes. So that's a great question, and that's why we're looking at community shared solar. So the idea here is not to generate the bill savings through behind the meter generation and through net metering. The idea for at least the first few projects in the project pipeline is to earn that passive income through the roof lease. That said, there still are buildings in that 062 rate class, which is about the 24-cent per kWh rate. So that is going to be a lot more conducive to behind the meter. And everyone else on the team, feel free to jump in here, but we have certainly not ruled out behind the meter projects through the NYCHA portfolio, but we're thinking at first we're probably going to start off with the community shared solar model.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Daphne?
Nothing to add. I think that's what we presented.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got another one. When will the RFI be issued? The RFI is available right now. You can download these slides from the handout section of the toolbar on the side of your screen. And then slide 23 here, this is the link to the survey, to the RFI, which is live now. So folks can do that this afternoon while hopefully everyone is indoors and safe and enjoying the snow to the best of your ability. And this is the link right here for the RFI. As you can see, it is live, and we're ready to accept information whenever folks are ready to provide it.
Right, and just one thing to add to that, we do have a deadline of February 24th, so if you were thinking of putting this off for a while, we'd encourage you instead to do it relatively soon, because we'd like to get these responses back so that we can start processing them within the next 2 weeks. If there's nothing further,
there are plenty. I'm just trying to find the best ones to address since we still have here.
Okay, we still have a few minutes.
One, are you looking to do your own designs with Helia Scope, or will the contractors have the freedom to do that themselves? Ben, do you want to field that one?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. We would definitely expect the developers to do their own designs. We're doing that right now on a sample basis to help refine the estimates of what's potential, but absolutely in the proposals and development effort, the developer themselves will be responsible for those.
Thanks, Ben. Another pertinent one, will the cities, are installations required to be completed with local union workers or DavisBacon Act requirements? The short answer to that is typically for public sector projects, yes. But Daphne, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or I don't know what the thinking is in terms of the RFP.
Yeah, it's a bit premature actually to answer that question. It will be fully explained in the procurement RFP. If it's a third-party contract, I mean, and the third party just installing its own equipment on NYCHA roofs, technically, we are not required to what we are internally using, which is a PLA, but it will be explained explicitly in the RFP. It's a bit premature to answer that question.
Right, and a lot of these procurement questions will be answered through the RFP, which is set for fall release. Another one here, and this may be a bit repetitive, but we really want to drive this point home. Do you expect solar portfolios to offer small rooftop and canopies for a PPA price of less than 5 cents per kWh? Short answer is no, we do not. That's why we are looking at the community shared solar model, and NYCHA's benefit is primarily through the passive income, at least for the early projects in the pipeline. I do just want to reiterate there are some NYCHA buildings that have a net metering credit value of around 24 cents per kilowatt hour. So we will be looking at some behind the meter in the future, but the primary goal here is the community shared solar. I don't know if we're going to have an answer for this one, but I think it is important. For us to think about if we don't have an answer right now, and also important for folks to think about when they're going into the RFI. The goal is set for 2026. Will the work be front-loaded into earlier years to take advantage of federal tax credit when solar capital is owned by a tax-paying entity? I think there are a lot of moving parts in that, but go ahead, Daphne.
Yeah, no, just one quick portion of the answer. The NYCHA will try to accomplish as much as possible with an available portfolio, and one of the criteria that is pretty critical at the moment is to find buildings that have a pretty recently replaced roof. So it will, I mean, we will maximize the potential of the opportunities, but we will have to take that into consideration. So it's just one portion of the answer.
We've got another one here. Does participation in the RFP require a response to this RFI? No.
The answer is no. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got it right here. If folks still have the screen up, you should be able to see it. Your response or non-response to the survey will not affect your ability to participate in future NYCHA solar procurement activities.
Right, nor will your participation in this webinar. We appreciate everybody being on the webinar, but participation is not a condition of being able to bid on these projects in the future.
All right, and I think we're going to end 5 minutes early here, and we're going to assume that that's all right with everyone. So for the rest of these questions, we will log them, and we will answer them as a team and get back to folks with the best answers that we can pull together at this time. With that, go ahead.
Okay, I think we can wrap up there, and we're just about on target, a few minutes early, which is good because I've got to go downstairs and feed the meter where my dog sled is tied up. But I want to thank my fellow presenters, Bill Oberkehr, Ben Foster, and Daphne Boret-Canguilhem, for being on this webinar, and I also want to thank all the participants for braving the weather, unless of course you're sitting at home, to be with us today. We look forward to working with you on this project in the months and years ahead. Again, the webinar is going to be available if you missed any part of it or want to hear anything again. You see right now on the screen the website, which is nysolarmap.com/resources. And again, if you have any questions you'd like to pose to the panelists, you can send them to us at nysolar@cuny.edu. So with that, we'll sign off, say goodbye, and thanks again to everybody for participating.